Hey everybody, this is Roberto Blake of robertoblake.com helping you create something awesome today. So today I'm going to do an unedited live stream. I don't script my content anyway, so I felt it was appropriate to go ahead and do this video because I've been wanting to do a long format video as a brain dump on graphic design advice for people who are trying to get into the graphic design profession or starting out. And a lot of you have asked kind of almost by a step-by-step breakdown of what it takes to actually become a graphic designer, because even though I've done 160 videos on the YouTube channel in my Learn Graphic Design playlist at this point, some of you need a little bit more hand-holding than that. And so this video is more for that purpose than anything else. And so it's going to be a brain dump of the things I think you need to be doing if you want to start a career as a graphic designer. So for everybody who says that, like, they're 12 years old, 15 years old, 20 years old, 30 years old, and they want to become a graphic designer, this video is for you. Typically, I do graphic design videos on Mondays. I usually get them out earlier in the afternoon, if not the morning. Today, running a little behind, was feeling under the weather, so I didn't get my editing done for this month's videos to all be scheduled. So that. But in any case, I'm going to be doing this long format video real quick. I'm going to jump right into it. But I want to take the opportunity to ask you that if you have not subscribed to the channel yet and you want to take advantage of those 160 plus graphic design videos that I've already done, then please click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. And now that that's out of the way, let's jump right into the content. So first of all, you need to figure out what graphic designer actually does for a living. Many of you who say you want to be graphic designers, it's because you're being pushed in that direction by parents and teachers who know nothing about graphic design, but see that you have an see that you have an interest in art and video games and things like that, and they're telling you to become a graphic designer. That may or may not work out for you because you're not going to be doing video game design. You're not going to be doing the character design for video game characters. You're not going to be doing animation. You're not going to be making anime. So if that's what you have in your mind when you say, oh, well, gee, I think I want to be a graphic designer, that is not what that job actually is. If you're going to become a graphic designer, what you will actually be doing is, in a lot of cases, you will be doing advertising. You'll be doing marketing for people's products and services. You will be helping people sell things. And that might mean that if you go into entertainment advertising, like I did when I worked in an ad agency in New York, I was doing work for entertainment advertising. I was working with cable networks under the agency, which included like Big Ten Network and HBO and things like that. Most graphic designers will not be doing work like that. In a lot of cases, when you first start in your career, as I did, you will not be doing work like that. You'll be doing smaller work. That means that you might be doing brochures for a local business. You might be doing the logos and business cards, or if you work internal in a company, you'll be doing trifolds and pamphlets for that company. You'll be doing the company letterhead. You'll be doing the company's graphics for the email campaigns. You might even be required to do some web design. If you go and you work for a company that's not an ad agency or a design firm, you go and work for a local business and you're their internal graphic designer, you will likely have to do not only graphic design for print, you will also have to probably do their social media graphics, and you will also likely have to do a little bit of their website management or maintenance and possibly build websites for the internal company properties. So that's the type of thing you might end up doing. If you end up working for a local newspaper or something like that, or a local publishing company, you might be doing things like laying out the columns for the newsletter or for the newspaper or the magazine. You might be doing listings for real estate agencies and putting the photos and the pictures and doing those kind of advertisements. So those are things that you can expect to do as a graphic designer. Some of the more glamorous things are, if you were working for a company that handles this sort of thing, you might get to do the packaging for very nice products. You might get to do some premium package design, which can be very cool. You might get to do print ad work for a company. You might get to do the print advertising for multiple companies in magazines. You might get to do billboards. You might get to do signage. I got to do a lot of those things. So those are opportunities that do exist if you become a graphic designer. Again, a lot of it might be that you're doing logo design for a small business or for the company that you work in, and then you might do some of their other visual branding. Again, some of this might be digital. It might be social media. In rare cases, if you decide to work for a company that specializes in this, you might get to design apparel. Other than that, If you do freelance work, you could choose what you want to do, and you could do any or all of these things because you could get the overflow work of a marketing company or an ad agency. You could work for a company and do their branding and their internal marketing materials in print, or their advertising, or their apparel design. As a freelancer, you have that freedom, but it comes at the expense of the reliability and consistency that a regular job provides. But you also have the unlimited ceiling and upside of making as much money as you want if you're good enough, and if you know how to run your business, and if you can market effectively and find clients. So that's what being a graphic designer is kind of really like, and those are the jobs you're going to do. Again, you're not going to be designing video games. You're not going to be doing character design for the most part. You're not going to be doing anything like that. This is going to be marketing. This is going to be ads. This is going to be web design. This could be motion graphics. You could end up doing the logo or title for a YouTube channel trailer, or for video marketing purposes, or for a television show or a film, and you might be doing the animation behind that. That is a rare opportunity, and you will have to work specifically in entertainment or as a freelancer to do that. You'd have to work for a company like Blind Design LLA, which is run by Chris Do, and we've had him and Jose Cavalier on the channel before, if you're not familiar with them. And you could do tremendous work like that, and it's very profitable. It's very lucrative, but it is very hard to do because you're not only utilizing design, but you're also thinking a little bit about user experience, and obviously you're leveraging animation. It's not a skill set every designer has. You might also need genuine artistic talent and illustration capability. So you really have to think about what your talents are, what your skills are, and what that maps to in terms of graphic design career. Because you can choose multiple graphic design disciplines, and you can choose a lot of industries to work in. You do editorial design. This is more things like print. This is magazines. This is books. This is things like that. And if you're more technical and you love typography, and maybe you're not the most creative person in the world, that still could be good for you, because you could do the internal layouts of magazines, and you could do the internal layouts of books, and you can make a very good living doing that. If you're very creative, you could still be a technician and do those things. I've done those things. And then you could still design the covers of them and do that, or some of the creative, some of the advertising spreads. So there's a lot of opportunity there in editorial design. Entertainment industry is a little different. Fashion industry is a little different. I did a lot of stuff with sports entertainment, like the HBO boxing and the documentaries and things like that. This was very Photoshop heavy and very InDesign heavy, but also required some Adobe Illustrator. So if you don't feel you have the technical skill to learn multiple applications, and you would only specialize in one or two, then something like that might not be for you. Maybe you're a print production specialist, or what's called a production artist. So maybe you're working in Adobe InDesign and you're doing the color matching, you're doing the layouts, you're doing font and typography. Maybe you're focused on that work if that's your skill set. You have to really think about, what are your skills? What do you like doing? What are you good at? And then find the careers that match that and map to it, and then pursue those careers. So that's how you would do that. So look into what graphic design careers are available for you. Look into what you like to do. Find people who are doing that, and then really look at their story. They probably have a blog that you can look at. They probably have a story about them that you can look into, and you can see how they got their start, who their clients were, what their first job was. You can watch them if they're on YouTube, and maybe they talk about that. You can really see what the path and the journey and the progression of building out that career might really look like for you. So there's that opportunity. So I would say virtual mentorship is important. I do a lot of that through this YouTube channel, but I'm not the only one. I recently wrote a piece for How Design. You can go to their website and you can find this piece. I did 20 graphic designers to follow and watch in YouTube. And I talked about people like my friend Sean Barry, my friend Stephen Looney, Karen Cavett, my friend Charlie Marie, my friend Will Patterson, and many other designers. I covered 20 different designers that have YouTube channels that you can use to figure out what their career was, what their path was, the mistakes that they made that they talk about, the successes that they've had, and you can learn from them, and you can use that to have a pathway for building your career if you have a similar personality, or see what you like about what they did and take it for yourself and make it fit. So there's that opportunity. You can also do an apprenticeship or an internship. A lot of times these will be unpaid, but the value proposition of you get is you get real world design, and you get real world design experience, and you get to hear it from the horse's mouth. You're not hearing from somebody. And again, your professors are doing their job for the most part, but not all of them are practitioners. Not all of them have done a design job in the last 10 years. So they may not know what the new trends are. They may not know what the competitive marketplace is for getting clients and getting jobs because they haven't competed for 10 years. But all of the practical knowledge, all the principles they're teaching you, all the skills, the technical things, most of that's going to hold true regardless. But if they're not practitioners, the things that you're going to struggle with in following their example are going to be things like getting clients, getting a job today, competing, what is expected in a portfolio now from an art director versus in their era or time, because that could be very important. I will tell you, as somebody who's in a position to hire graphic designers and someone who has hired graphic designers on behalf of the companies that I've worked for in the past, and now looking to build out my own team for when I need to offset projects and how I build those relationships and how I qualify people. It is not the same as when I got started and what was done in my interview process. It is a totally different thing. And I will tell you right now that the 10 or 12 pieces that your design professor is telling you to have in your portfolio does not sell me on giving my client to you or you doing my internal project. 10 pieces, unless they're the 10 most amazing pieces I've seen in my entire life. And I have enough friends in the business to where I've seen the best of the best of the best with honors, sir. If those 10 pieces don't blow me away, I'm moving on to the person who has 30 pieces because I'm extrapolating that someone put the top 10% of their portfolio in their book. And so the volume of pieces speaks to experience, and I can vet consistency and I can pick up your design choices and style. I'm also looking for self-initiated work. I'm looking at what you chose to do and what decisions you made when you didn't have an art director or a client breathing over your shoulder telling you what to make. I'm looking for what you would choose in that situation. So if I see no self-initiated projects, if I see no explanation under the image of what your work was, and you're just saying, well, my work will speak for itself. I have no idea whether you did all of this or whether it was your idea or whether it was the client's idea or whether you had the art direction. I don't know that. So now I can't attribute something to you for this work authentically without asking a bunch of questions. And now you've made my job harder as someone in the hiring chair. So I need you to think about that context. I've talked about that in my portfolio design video. So check that out. Make sure you're subscribed to get videos like that. And so I'm looking for things like that. I'm looking for what your range of experience is. If you're a specialist in presenting that way, cool. I need to see that if you're specializing in something, I need to see a volume of work to see how deep you went into this niche and what your experience is. If you're someone who's more broad or a generalist, I hate the phrase jack of all trades. Don't use it, because you might be a master of several of those trades because they might cross over and overlap to an 80 or 90% value proposition in terms of how they're executed. So I'm not interested in the jack of all trades narrative, but I might be interested in a generalist that's very good at some very specific things that they're executing on. And so if it's that, then I need to see a representation of the things that you're best at across all these different things. And if it's that you're niche, but you're doing niche in multiple platforms or in multiple forms of media, I need to see that. I need to know that. So I need depth. I always need depth. And width matters too. So width and depth matter. I wouldn't say go either or. I say it's always both. You go wide and you go deep whenever you can, because you don't know what the person is looking for. And as an employer, I might be very different than somebody else. My way of vetting designers might be different than Chris Doe's or Jose Caballero's or Stephen Looney's or Sean Barry's or Karen Kavitz's or Charlie Marie's. So if we're hiring you, you need to really specifically tailor your portfolio to the interview that you have, and your general portfolio that's out there on the web and out there on the net needs to cover enough of your bases so that no matter who's looking at it, they feel comfortable to make a buying decision where you're concerned, in the same way that regardless of who's looking at it, somebody can go to Apple's website and buy a MacBook Pro and feel good about that decision, regardless of who they were. So if you are marketing yourself online, you have to understand that that is a generalist game. So even if you're a specialist, you have to market like a generalist, because you don't know who is looking at it and who wants to give you money. So you need to be able to collect everyone's money, right? So, or at least everybody that you want to, everybody that fits what you're trying to do. So I would say that that's very important, and that you need to really figure out what that strategy looks like for yourself. A lot of people don't have a portfolio strategy. They just fill their portfolio with the work that they like the best and that they think is cool. And there's something to that. but you should also really have a strategy where that's concerned. You need a print portfolio still, you need a digital portfolio, and you need a mobile portfolio today. And you need to have your portfolio saved in your email account so that you have push of a button, you can send it to anybody you need to. Or if you have it on your phone, you need to be able to access it without the internet to go to your website. You need to have the stuff in your phone as a mobile portfolio so that you can present right then and there on your smartphone, your phablet, your tablet, whatever it is, without your laptop, so that you're good to go in any situation. At any point, you can sell yourself and get that job. So that's what you need to be doing. You need to decide whether you're getting a job or whether you're going to be a freelancer. You need to really figure that out. If you're going to get a job, you need to figure out what industry and what discipline you're going to be in, just like we talked about. But if you're going to be a freelancer, you need to figure out what your discipline and your industry is still going to be, because you have to decide who your clients are. And everyone can't and shouldn't be your client. That's a problem that a lot of freelance designers run into, is they don't know how to qualify their clients. Even with being a generalist and covering multiple things, and I don't even just do design. I do other things. I do design, I do marketing and consulting, I do paid writing, I do speaking engagements. I do all these things, but I still have targeted my market for each of them. So targeting your market, knowing who your customer or client is still very important, and you have to be strategic about that as well, and you have to narrow it. You have to decide what services you're offering, what value you provide, and who you're willing to work with for that. And I also have a qualifier for my clients where I only work with awesome people. So there are specific personal criteria, and there are industries that I just won't work with because of a personal stance that I have, but I always refer them to someone who I think can serve their needs. So if I'll just put it out there, I don't work with big tobacco. And I've been approached by people who work in that industry to do things, and I've turned it down and given that work to other friends who are designers who don't have that hang up, because that's just a personal hang up of mine. And I'm not going to work with them. And that's fine if somebody else is. I have nothing against that, and they're welcome to that. And those people still are clients. They still have to be served by someone. So I'm still going to create that value, because it's not their fault or their problem that I don't want to work and do business with that industry. That's not that person's problem. So I'm happy to refer them to somebody who can deliver on what they need, because they still have a job to do. So you have to figure out what those boundaries are for you, in terms of what office hours are you going to work? Are you someone who can take a phone call any time of day and it's not going to bother you? Or do you have a family situation that doesn't allow for that, or a health or personal situation? You need to decide that. You need to decide how many hours a week you're going to work. You need to decide what your work-life balance is. You got to decide what your project bandwidth is. How many clients will you take on in a given month? How many clients do you need to take on at the prices that you're charging in order to make the money that you need to survive and to invest in growing your business and have savings set aside? So it's not a matter of, like, I criticize people about Fiverr all the time, and I hate Fiverr because I feel it devalues creative services. I think there's a game to play in Fiverr, and it's not the one that people are playing. I think there's a use for it. I think it's being abused and used wrong. I think it's being marketed wrong. I won't go too much on this rant, but my point becomes this. If you have to invest in Max and iMax and Adobe Photoshop software at $60 a month, and professional services, things like possibly your Microsoft subscriptions, services I use like Buffer for marketing, web hosting, and all these other things that you have to do, plus hardware investment, plus the ability to buy a backup machine in case something goes wrong, and then portable hard drives, and so on and so on and so on, it becomes very difficult to justify charging the lowest amount because you're afraid you won't get business. It's better to then charge the highest level you can, so that if you only get a few clients, that you can get a few clients or even 0 clients and still be okay. I'll talk about how you still make money as a designer with 0 clients, because it's something I can do. So I'll talk about that in a moment. But my point is, with pricing your services, which is something I get asked by new designers all the time, is you charge the amount that you're comfortable with and that you can justify based on the quality and value of your work, the quality of your time, the customer service value that you're going to deliver, and you make the client comfortable with that in the way that you communicate with them. That is your responsibility as a designer, to make someone comfortable with the price you're charging, because they can't walk into Best Buy with, and say, well, I only have this budget, but I want this much TV. That's not going to work. That's not going to work. It's not going to happen, and no one's going to lower the price for them. So understand, as a service provider, the value of your time, you never get it back. It's worth more than a physical product or commodity in that regard, because it's your life and your time and your energy and your creativity and your frustration. So don't feel afraid to do that. Some of you are worried about charging $30 an hour. The guy mowing my lawn is probably getting $80 an hour. or more. And that's for manual labor. Nothing against that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's because I'm buying back my time. Your client's buying back your time. I can charge $250 to $500 for a marketing consultation at this point. So I'm not going to go cut my grass for 2 hours when I could make $1,000 in 2 hours instead. So for you as a designer, your client it could do this in Photoshop himself and spend 10 hours, 10 hours that they're not closing $1,000 and $10,000 deals. So why are they haggling with you on a $1,000 project to spend 10 hours of time that's costing them $10,000? Because CEO time is worth more than design time. So you need to find a polite way to have that conversation if it comes down to it. But understand that you shouldn't be charging an hourly rate. You should be charging a service fee, and you should account for your estimated hours in that. In my opinion, that's my billing model, and take it or leave it however you want. But I'll tell you this, agencies don't do the hourly billings. When I worked at the ad agency, we incorporated an estimated hourly turnaround and ROI and those things, but we had service fees on top of that for different things we're doing, and that was all in the bill. So it was a project fee, and it was itemized, and no hours showed up on that bill because it's the result is the result. Whether we spend 10 hours on it or 100 hours on it, it's up to us to make the time value proposition worthwhile for us to cover overhead and payroll and expenses. So I encourage designers to start thinking of themselves from that perspective and understand that if you work for an employer, that they're getting 20x the value of whatever your hourly salary is out of the work you're doing, because they can't be profitable otherwise. So if you're working for $20 or $30 an hour right now and you think that's great, understand that you could be making $600 in that hour because your employer is. So just take that for what it's worth. They're making 300 to 600 potentially. Not everyone is doing that, but they're making 300 to 600 per hour to your $20 to $30 an hour, because for the overhead of what it costs to have an employee, to pay the electricity, to pay the rent, to have a down client month, to not have projects, and so on and so forth, they have to account for that. So that's how they make their money, and that's how they bill on the outside. So I know that. I know that, agencies per project are charging for single projects that designers might charge $500 or $800 for. Agencies get to charge $10,000 and $20,000 for that, to give you perspective. So, it's things like that. And in understanding that, you have to position yourself for the market you want. If you want to get the higher tier clients, you have to position yourself, which means investing, which means your own branding and your own website and your own business cards and logos have to be on point to reflect the level that you want to play at. The same thing if you're applying for a job. If you're applying for a job and you want a really good salary, then you have to almost convince them that you can earn that without them. And so if you want to negotiate a $70,000 a year salary as a senior designer, you need to find some way of making them believe that you could get $70,000 a year in client work. And that might be the body of work in your portfolio. And it's also your personality and presentation, your communication skills. The more articulate you are, the better of a marketer you are, having a social media presence and audience. Those optics show them that you're worth this because you could leverage it and you can make close to that without them. So they have to offer you more. If you can make $50,000 on your own, or you are making $50,000 on your own as a freelancer, and you can prove it, then to give up your freedom and autonomy, a company would have to offer you 75 or 80, right? So because you could scale to that place on your own. So they have to up the bar if they want your talent and your ability. So you have to think about that kind of positioning. Designers need to stop thinking of themselves as artists, or put it on a scale of that they're 30% an artist and 70% a marketer. Because here's the thing, the best and most talented designers are artists. The designers that make the most money and are in the most demand are marketers. And the reasoning behind that is that marketers sell things. Artists attract interest and attention with the beautiful work that they do. But if it doesn't sell anything, then it's not worth nearly as much as they might think, versus something that's very simple, but you did something really simple and sold it for a ton of money. That's infinitely more valuable and more interesting to a business that's trying to sell for as much as possible for as little effort and work and production as possible. So if you understand that, you are in fact the easier sell at a higher rate and value, because your client is trying to do exactly that. So it's about understanding that nuance And that's a little sophisticated for new designers because they got into this because they love design, they love typography, they love Photoshop, and it's very cool to them. And it's cool to me too. And I love it. And I do it for myself. And you know, even when I'm not going to make money at it, I do it for myself to do the thing that I love. But then I also figured out how to make money at it. And I do that for my clients. And again, your goal is to do as little as possible to make as much money. That's everybody's goal as far as a successful business model. And I'm not telling you to cheat anybody. I'm telling you to work smarter and not harder. I'm telling you to get more value, and I'm telling you to raise your value and your time, because your value is not necessarily predicated on your result. It's predicated on what you have created in terms of brand perception and nuance. It's the value of a Nike shirt is not more valuable than an Adidas shirt. It's not more valuable than a Fruit of the Loom shirt. It's that the brand perception has convinced us that it is. An iPhone is not more valuable than any other phone, regardless of what you think. There are phones that have better specs that are cheaper. I have an iPhone 6S, by the way, so I'm saying that very self-aware of that fact. I have an iMac behind me, so it's not to bash Apple. It's to point out that Apple is smart because they leverage their brand equity to sell for the highest amount possible as a premium product without necessarily having to outcompete their competitors on the product value. They did it in the advertising and in the marketing, which is the value of a graphic designer, is putting a company in position to beat their competition through better design aesthetic and through better marketing. And if you position yourself as a designer that understands marketing instead of a designer that is an artist, you have a better chance of convincing a high value brand that you can act in their interest and align to making them the dollars, and thus it makes sense to hire you. So I hope you guys, catch what I'm throwing there. In terms of how you learn about graphic design, something that I wish I'd covered a lot earlier in this video. In terms of learning graphic design, you have a couple of options. It's not as simple as going to design school. RISD and Art Center are great schools, and I know people who graduated from there, and they're tremendous. But it's not the only way to learn graphic design, and I would argue that you could do 2 years at community college and then go to a state school and get the same basic core principles. But if you're willing to hustle and you're willing to hunt information down, you can find all that information for free on the internet today anyway, and it will actually be good and it will actually be accurate, and you'll be able to do it. Now, if you don't have the self-discipline for that, then you could still learn online through platforms like Udemy and Skillshare and lynda.com that can provide structure in terms of courses for you to learn the software, learn the design principles. You could get the books and the curriculum from any of the greatest schools in the country and get that reading list and order those books on Amazon and read them yourself and read them cover to cover, which, by the way, you will not do if you show up to graphic design school, because I went to graphic design school and I bought the books and we didn't even read half of them. I did, though. I read them cover to cover, and that might be why I might be a little more successful than some people that I went to school with, because I invested in my learning outside of the classroom. I picked my professor's brain. I apprenticed for free with one of my professors, which then led to some paid freelance work for that professor. I did that. I did the same thing with learning photography. I have taught myself so much because I figured out that 4 years of college at the slow pace of school was not going to be equal to the hustle and grind of teaching myself as much as I could after the fact, outside of the classroom, on my own time, and combining that and going deeper, not to mention the fact that I was freelancing and hustling and working for clients. So I was learning the real world applications of, and I was like getting bad grades because I could either do a project and get a good grade, or I could do this client work and make a few $100. And you know what I did. So, I would say that keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't go to design school. If you need resources and access to computers, if you don't have the ability to buy a Mac, going to college means you'll get the ability to learn the Mac platform and be able to use the programs there. Adobe products are the same whether you're using Mac or PC, so it really doesn't matter. But marketing optics dictate that getting a job at an agency or an established firm that is romantic about such things means that you'll have to know the Mac operating system and environment, or they won't take you seriously as a designer. So there's an investment part that I'm going to get to, but school can put you in position to be comfortable with the Mac operating system if you can't buy into it yourself. School can give you networking opportunities, but you could hustle and do that yourself. And school can, again, give you access to resources that you just wouldn't have. Go to the Career Center. If you're going to pay for college, use it and abuse it. Go to the Career Center, milk everything, get all of the loan forgiveness you can, do things like Pell Grant, Do everything you can to get the maximum value if you're going to pay for college. Do not go there and do not screw around. Do not play around. Do not worry about having fun. Make friends that are valuable to your networking and career opportunities. Take free internships. Take this opportunity to start a freelance business in your dorm room. Hustle and get clients. Spend the 4 years in college being as uncomfortable as possible so that when you graduate, it's easier to become comfortable. That would be my advice about going to design school, art school, college in general. Now, in terms of investment, if you feel that you need to have a Mac, don't buy a MacBook Pro while you're in college. It is a waste of money because it will be outdated by the time you're about to go into your real job, and you'll have to replace it anyway. It'll be outdated. It'll be old. You need to go into your real job with your real computer. So you don't buy a Mac until you're getting client work or a job where three paychecks or 3 client jobs would translate to you being able to buy that Mac. That's when you buy a MacBook Pro. Okay, you don't buy it when you're in college. You use the Macs that are in the college. If you feel like you absolutely need one at home, you buy a refurbished Mac Mini 2012 edition so that you can actually upgrade the RAM and slap 16 gigs in there, swap out the internal hard drive for an SSD drive, which is a solid state drive. It's the fastest drive you can get, and do that and upgrade that hardware. And if that's too technical for you, find a hardware geek, find a friend who can do that for you, and then get that, because it will cost you about maybe $500 to $800 to get a refurbished Mac Mini, get a monitor for like $100, and now you have a Mac operating system to play on and to learn on at home. And you can say, yes, you use Mac, and that's all you use if that's what you need to sell yourself to someone. Then, once you're getting $1,000 projects, you can justify the expense of buying a MacBook Pro when you save up from that. You don't spend money like that and make that investment until you're making the money to justify it with the work that you're doing with the tools. So that's what I would say about that investment. This is the barrier that keeps a lot of people from becoming graphic designers, is the expense. It's going to cost you $60 a month after you graduate with taxes to get Adobe Creative Cloud. This is the software you need as a graphic designer. As a student, you can get away with learning Adobe in school and using Corel Draw and software that's cheaper to own at home. But you're going to have to suck it up and go into Creative Cloud. Do not worry about the people who whine about owning the software. Renting the software is great. It's $30 for a month the first year after you graduate. And then after that, you go into the $50 a month, $60 with taxes roughly. And so you do that. And it's worth it because it's $600 for a year. You have a design degree. If you're smart and you've been listening to this, you've been hustling for the 2 to 4 years that you were in college if you did college or whatever. Or you've been hustling and grinding and growing your career for 2 years. By the time you need to pay for Photoshop or the other Adobe Creative Suite to have the whole thing at $50, $60 a month, you should, $600 a year. One project that you do should be able to pay for that for the whole year. So it shouldn't be a problem. It's an investment. This is less money than you're going to be spending on gas to travel to your job. This is less money than you're going to spend on your phone. And those things may or may not actually make you money. This thing is the opportunity to make up to like $2,000 and $3,000 per client gig, depending on how good you are and what the client is. $600 for a year is a piffling sum for that upside. So take that into consideration. The other investment that you're going to have to make is going to be high-speed internet. You can use free Dropbox. There's a whole bunch of services and things I use. I cover this on the YouTube channel. So subscribe and get that. Mondays is the graphic design stuff. Tuesdays, I talk about the tech and what I'm doing. Thursdays is software tutorials. Wednesdays is camera stuff. Learn to market yourself. Use photography and video to market yourself as a graphic designer. Use video to show that you can do Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign. Don't just tell people and show them your portfolio work. Make some video demos. Make some video demos of what you can do with an hour of time, and then make that a speed art time lapse so that people can see what you can create from a blank canvas, because that's really impressive from a marketing standpoint. And it will also help you opt out of people who want you to do test jobs for design, which is a new thing that's happening. If they can go to your portfolio online, they may not call you in for a test job and just say, okay, you got the job off the first interview, because they could go into your YouTube stream and see that you did this artwork and that you can do the stuff that's in your portfolio. So that might be a value proposition there. So I would say take advantage of that. Photograph your work as well. If you actually do print stuff and you actually do product design or something like that, consider photographing it and use that as part of your marketing piece and everything like that. If you have a really great workstation, consider photographing stuff like that. Use marketing to your advantage to get opportunities, especially if you're a freelancer, but even for job opportunities, because you still have to network and get the attention of people. And if you want to get the attention of someone working at an ad agency, Twitter is a really great way to do that. So, figure out what marketing yourself as a graphic designer looks like. And again, I've done videos on this, so you can sit there and you can watch my videos. I've covered probably every platform and how to market yourself in every platform. So I would say definitely look at that. So I've talked about education. I've talked about finding your career and what that might look like, picking a discipline. I've talked about picking an industry or a sub-industry within design. I've talked about a niche. I've talked about appealing to employers. I've talked about building your portfolio. I've talked about the need for digital, print, and mobile portfolios, marketing yourself and leveraging social media. In-person networking is something I also have to talk about. As a designer, creatively, you should not isolate yourself. You should be hanging out with and working with other creatives and stop worrying about them stealing your artwork. Get over it and hang out with them and jam with them, collaborate, work on things together so you can expand your creativity. Also, when they don't want to do something, they'll tell somebody that they can call you, and then you can pick up that work or you can pick up that relationship. So that's awesome. They can intro you to people. You can meet people through them. You can learn from their mistakes. Take advantage of hanging out with other designers. Hang out with non-designers that can refer you to business or that can get you jobs. These are going to be people like writers. There's going to be web designers. There are going to be marketers. There are going to be small business owners. Go to the local small business events in your community and hit people up there. And don't just give them your business card. Have an actual conversation. Ask them questions about their business. Take a personal interest in them. Care. Give a crap. And show them that you give a crap. And you're more likely to be able, in the long run, to get business from them or get a referral from them. So do that. If you're whining about not having clients, I guarantee you that you're not showing up once a week to the marketing events that are in your local area. I guarantee you that you're not nagging your friends and family members once a week to get your referral business. I guarantee you that you're not going through your list of all the people you went to school with and finding out what they're doing and talking up them and having a great relationship and then asking if they know anybody who is hiring a graphic designer or anyone who needs a logo or needs an update for their brochure. I know that you're probably not doing that if you're worried about not having clients. If you really want to get some clients to make some side money while you're already working or hustling, really look at the following people. Look at your local photographers. They need business cards. They need websites. They might need any number of marketing materials. They're going to have money from their clients to be able to hire your services if they're good. Look for people who are already marketing and just not doing it as well, or that you think you could really help their visual brand. Look for local businesses that are advertising in Google AdSense. Google AdWords, because if they're local and they can pay for the outrageous prices that it takes to compete in the Google search engine for a sponsored ad, they have the money to hire a graphic designer. So look for those businesses. If you're finding a local business that has the money to put a print ad in the local paper, they have the money to hire a graphic designer for something. Look at real estate agents. So do that. If you're struggling with clients, that's where you look. What else can I tell you guys about becoming a graphic designer? We talked about what it's really like. We talked about this is what the job is really like, that you're going to do billboards and posters and business cards and logos and websites, that you're not going to do games and you're not going to make anime characters. We talked about that. You're going to possibly do book covers. You're possibly going to do the internals of magazines. We talked about that. We talked about the fact that you may or may not get to do apparel and merchandise. We talked about the fact that you can, let's talk about crowdsourcing platforms. I harped on Fiverr and I criticized Fiverr. There are better platforms out there. Elance and Odesk combined to do Upwork. I don't play there. I played when those platforms were individual years and years ago. The game might be different. Freelancer.com might be different. People per hour might be different than when I played in those spaces. But what I will say is the way that you get good clients in there and not the cheapo ones is stunning body of work and portfolio. Take all the qualifying tests that you possibly can, and that will help you do everything that's required to verify your account, have a very good profile picture for all of that, do all of those things, and that will help you. In terms of marketing yourself as a designer, whether you're using platforms or not, content marketing is the game now. And so having a blog is important. Figure out what makes sense for you to put in that blog. Maybe it's case studies, maybe it's research, maybe it's talking about design, maybe it's giving tips to the people who potentially hire you. Like maybe it's 10 things to know before you hire a logo designer if you're doing logo design. 10 things your web designer might have done wrong. Things like that will help you find clients, believe it or not. So consider doing that. Um, what else can I give you? What else can I possibly give you? We talked about education. We talked about maybe you go to school, maybe you don't. We covered that. Uh, Resources are a reason to go to school. I did a whole video about that, by the way. There are reasons to go to design school. There are reasons there are not. I did a great video on 10 things you won't learn in design school. So subscribe and get that. I also did a video on 5 things, and that has almost 100,000 views by now. So it must be popular, and it probably is important. Let's see. As far as some things in terms of what being a graphic designer is like, if you work for, let's talk about what working for an ad agency is like. Working for an ad agency was probably simultaneously the best experience I had in my career and the worst experience I had in my career. Nope, I take it back. I give it number 2. Being a marketing manager was worse. The reason I say that is this. Advertising is a really rough game, and there are some really interesting characters in that game, and deadlines are no joke. Pressure is tremendous. The quality of work is going to be in a high level of demand, and when you do succeed at it, it will be an accomplishment that you're very proud of. There's nothing like seeing your work on a billboard in Times Square. I think I'm in a very small percentage of people who've ever achieved that, and it's one of the things I'm very proud of, and that like really puts a smile on my face whenever I think about it, that multiple times I've gotten to see that, and it was great. The downside of that was that the anxiety and depression that resulted from the actual reality of the job and the people that I was working with literally had me wanting to throw myself in front of the New York City subway like trains every single day. So, but that's also because I struggled with depression and anxiety in a very general way. And I've done a video about that. I have a lot of advice to give about creatives who are struggling with that. And it's a very important thing. And I'm slightly glib about it because I'm talking about my life, but it's no joking matter for people who are going through it. I've come out the other end, so I can be glib about it. But I was at the lowest point in my life at that point, and not because of anything that was even happening in my personal life. My job was making me feel that way. And so I would say that you have to find the right work environment, regardless of whether you're working in-house or at an agency, or even for clients as a freelancer. You have to find the right work environment, the right culture, the right work-life balance that's going to let you sustain this career and not let it become something you hate. Because I almost got to a point where I despised working in Adobe products and Photoshop, not because of anything internal to them, but because of the people I was working with and for. So that was really rough. The same thing with the marketing manager gig. It came to a point where I was very enthusiastic at first and loved heading up the department. And then it just became more burden and more work and less resources and not more money to do anything. And it became problematic. And that all was predicated by workplace culture. So positioning yourself to get the best job you can by marketing yourself, by building a personal brand. This is actually a great opportunity for a right hook as a marketer for me. So building a personal brand is important to screen your clients and also position yourself to get the best job you possibly can. I did a free ebook, and you only get it through being part of my Create Awesome Community newsletter at robertoblake.com/newsletter. You'll get the free ebook, The 7 Points of Personal Branding mini guide that I made, and it tells you how I built a personal brand that got me to the best relationships and best gigs in my life, and how I built the successful business and brand that I'm happy to have now. And it keeps it short and sweet and actionable for you. And it's just 7 main things about how you communicate and build your personal brand and why it's important. Because if I had built that personal brand earlier in my career, about maybe 12 or 15 years ago, I guarantee you that I would have had a much easier time in my jobs and career as a graphic designer, as a marketer. I would have got higher paying clients as a freelancer. It would have changed the game for me. But back then, these platforms weren't necessarily available. And also, personal branding wasn't what it was, or rather what it is today, as far as people understanding the value of it and taking it seriously. So today, super advantageous. 10 years ago, you could have lived without it. Today, I wouldn't recommend living without it. So that's my right hook for joining the Create Awesome Community newsletter. Get the free ebook. If you like it, stay subscribed. If you don't think it has value for you and you don't think I'll ever create value for you in an email, then unsubscribe after you get the free gift. I'm not going to feel hurt about it. If I don't deliver value, then you're entitled to do that. That's actually a good segue. So in your graphic design job, understand that the value you create for an employer or client is your ability to effectively present, communicate, and market their product, their service, or their ideas, or their causes. You're not there to make things look pretty. That's part of the job of selling things. Things that look pretty are easier to sell. You're there to sell stuff. Okay. So understand that and don't get romantic and hung up. What you do to avoid being romantic and hung up and arguing with your clients or with the employer about the work that you're doing and how you're approaching it, the way you avoid that is you do personal work on your own time and you do a lot of it so that you can pour your heart and soul into something you care about. That's why you build a personal brand so that when it's time to do other people's stuff, the thing that they care about, the thing that's their baby, it's not your baby too. And you're not fighting with them for custody of the creative. I need to do a video about that. So, to avoid fighting with your clients or your employer or your customer for custody of the creative, then just do your own stuff, build your own personal brand, build sub brands, build things that you care about, create awesome things, share them with the world, and you'll be fine because you'll be doing your own thing on your time and you'll be doing their thing on their time and you won't feel bad about it. So that would be my advice there. Also, that personal work is going to help scale you when it's time to get the clients that you really want or the job you really want because it'll attract the people who want your style and your voice and your vision and the thing that you're doing creatively. It'll attract them and draw them to you. So that's what's going to be the maximum upside for you. And so that would be what my advice is there. But let's see. I think I've probably covered everything that I think I can. I even talked about the depression and anxiety thing that I didn't want to get into about what the job is like on the negative side. I mean, there is a point to that. I talked about the education. I talked about the different career opportunities. I talked about the job market. A lot of people think that there's no money in graphic design. Let me address that. People think there's no money in graphic design because they're thinking romantically about the art thing and about, oh, you want to go to art school. I'm not paying for that. That's mommy and daddy talking. They want you to be a doctor. They want you to be a lawyer. They want you to get a good, consistent job. You know what's the most consistent thing in the world? Selling crap. And not crap literally, but like selling stuff is the most Selling stuff is the most consistent thing in the world. Any market can be suffering. Any market can be down, and there will still be somebody somewhere trying to sell stuff. Okay? And today, that means that there will be people who are trying to sell stuff, which means they'll need a website, they'll need a logo, they'll need a business card, they'll need print marketing materials in most cases, they will need visual branding, they'll need a design for the emails in their email list because that's the game if you're in marketing. They will need all of those things. They will need social media banners and things like that. They will need Google display advertising. Those things are not going away unless the internet goes away. And even if the internet goes away, someone will still need to make a sign to put outside their real estate sale. They will still need a business card. Some politician will still need a yard sign that says vote for me. That will all still be in play. So no matter what, someone's going to need a graphic designer. Someone's going to need a visual artist. Someone's going to need a logo designer. Somebody's going to need a print production artist. Someone's going to need, there's going to be a magazine that's in business somewhere that's going to need someone to lay out the columns and lay out the stuff. There's going to be someone who needs an ad to go into that print publication. There's going to be someone trying to sell a product or service or a cause. There's going to be someone trying to raise money for a startup. There's always going to be someone that needs to sell their idea or sell themselves, and you're going to help them do it. So if people are trying to say there's no money in graphic design and that's a saturated market, I would tell them to think again. I would tell them they don't know what the heck they're talking about. I would tell them they're full of crap. I won't hedge on that. I won't be polite about it. I will say that they are full of crap and they don't know what they're talking about because there's always someone trying to sell stuff, and you can sell things when it has a prettier package. You can sell things when it has a prettier package. Where's my iPhone? I could make a thing off of that. GoPro. Okay, this still needed a package. This still needed a logo. This has a website that's selling it. This still has all of those things. Everybody, Apple, there's always going to be a need to sell things, and thus there will always need to be advertising and marketing, which graphic design is the front line of that because we buy based on aesthetic value. We judge books by their cover. There'll always be someone trying to sell a book. There'll always be a need for someone to do a cover design for a book. There will always then need to be a flyer or a coupon for that book to get 10% off at the bookstore or the coffee shop or whatever. There will always be an author that is doing a book tour and will need marketing material and leave behinds for that. There will always be an author that is doing speaking engagements and thus will need a really well-designed speaker one sheet that you will put together in Adobe InDesign or Illustrator for them. There will always be someone who will need a brand to help sell themselves and create awareness of them. So graphic designers will always have employment. Graphic designers will always make money as long as they're charging enough. And so graphic designers will always have an opportunity to have a living and to have a career or to have a business. So When everyone is thinking that there are more safer jobs, there are no more safer jobs than a job that helps facilitate the selling of goods and services. And thus, graphic designers are the most employable people on the planet by comparison to a lot of other professions that are going to be super saturated. And, that's what I would say. And yeah, there are other things that go with that. Marketers, obviously, social media people for now, and so on and so forth. Um, Lawyers, accountants, other people that facilitate business. But the actual selling and marketing of business, we're on the front lines of that. So if people think that there's no way for us to make money, they haven't thought it through. So that's it. That's what I have for you. That is advice for becoming a graphic designer in 2015. Anything that I didn't cover in this video, I've probably covered on one of the other 160, 170 videos here on the YouTube channel. So if you have not subscribed, I would encourage you to do that. Subscribe and get those other 160 videos on graphic design. I also then on Tuesdays talk about the tech and the hardware you need to execute on this. You're a graphic designer, you're looking for a budget laptop under $600. Guess what? Let's talk a little bit about hardware. You think you need a Mac? I have a Mac. I also have PCs. And guess what? They both get the job done. And you can get a PC for under $500 that can do not only graphic design, but do the editing and video production stuff that I need to do this YouTube channel. I've done lightsaber effects in $500 laptops, $400 laptops. I've done a whole video on budget laptops for graphic design and video editing. That's the content that I put out on Tuesdays. Wacom tablets, I talk about that. I talk about what monitors to buy. I have a video coming up about that, what monitors to buy about graphic design, computers, color calibration, what printers you need, things like that. I talk about marketing yourself as a graphic designer. I talk about marketing yourself in general. I give you social media hacks on Saturdays for social media and small business Saturdays. So even if you think that you've gotten all you need as a graphic designer out of the value of my content, you should still subscribe because I've got plenty of other stuff for you. And on Thursdays, I'm doing tutorials and covering all the Adobe applications. I've already done 70 something videos on Photoshop. I've got stuff coming out in Illustrator. I've done a tutorial on how to actually build your portfolio in Adobe InDesign. So if you actually want to build your portfolio from scratch in Adobe InDesign and make it custom and go with a wide format layout or a magazine layout, I've done a whole tutorial about that. So you can check that out. There are videos that I've done about the process of logo design. There's all kinds of things on the channel. If you're trying to do web design, I've done some basic videos. I think I've done like maybe 6 of them, teach you some of the basics of HTML coding and leveraging Adobe Dreamweaver or any other text editor for that. I did a website that if you want to put together a blog, I show you how to put together a blog in 5 minutes. So there's a ton of value here. I want to help you create awesome things and share them with the world. And if you're a graphic designer, you're definitely in a great position to do that. You're in a better position than most people to do that. I encourage you to build your personal brand to get what you want out of customers and clients or even job opportunities. So subscribe to the newsletter, robertoblake.com/newsletter. You'll become part of the Create Awesome community in a big way. You'll be getting exclusive content from me, sometimes early videos. And of course, you'll get that free ebook as my gift to you on the 7 points of personal branding. So you can build a personal brand, market yourself effectively, regardless of what social media platform or traditional platform you want to use. And it'll help you get the right clients, get the right relationships, get the right opportunities, because you'll know how to reach those people with an authentic, real story. If you guys still have questions or comments, I'm always happy for you to reach out to me. You can reach out to me on Twitter @Roberto Blake. I'll try and answer in real time. I might even do a Twitter video response. If you have questions, leave those in the comment section of this video, and I'll try and answer as many of them as as I can. If you're not familiar with my channel, guess what? I'm one of the only people over 10,000 subscribers in YouTube that tries to actively reply to every single comment. You can ask anybody. I try to reply to everybody. So if you're watching this video, you've never left a comment before, you have a question for me, leave it in the comment section and I will try my best to answer it. I usually can do it within the same day or maybe 2 or 3 days. I'm putting out video content every day. So I'm always here. I'm always trying to do that. I still run a full-time design business. Look, I'm answering those comments while I'm in line at the bank or when I'm waiting for a video to render or even while I'm on a phone call. So, that's how I can do it. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Another late night session here. Did not get out the pre-recorded video, so I want to do this for you, create the maximum upside and value. Big things coming in 2016. I actually have a portfolio course coming out in 2016, so that's going to be interesting. I haven't decided whether that's going to be in Udemy, Skillshare, or both, but definitely stay tuned for that. I also am going to have some kind of email course on an intro to freelancing to help some of you guys out I've created a lot of video content here on the channel for free, but I want to give more context. I want to do some exclusive videos for that. So that will be part of an email list opt-in. I'll be sure to get you guys information on that so you can get that specifically if you care about it. But as always, feel free to reach out to me. Comment section, Twitter. I'm always here for you guys. So just remember, create something awesome today.